Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are in the world today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this, the latest episode of the State of Digital Clinical Trials podcast. I'm really excited to bring Series 3 to you, and I'm even more excited to be joined today by someone I've got to know very well over the last couple of years, someone who I believe is going to be full of opinions, ideas, and is going to be able to share a little bit of insight into what I think is one of the largest transformation programs in our industry right now. That individual is Ibrahim Kamstrup-Akkaoui, and I am delighted to say hello and good morning to Ibrahim today. Ibrahim,
thank you, Richard.
Thank you for joining us today. I am delighted to have you join us. There may be some people out there who don't know you as well as I do. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind taking a few seconds to introduce yourself. And perhaps I can also ask you to touch on the fact that you are, to my knowledge, the only lead singer who's also a very senior member of the data management community.
Oh yeah, that's true. I got a lot of interesting initiatives going on, both at work and a little bit of outside work. So I'm a vice president at Novo Nordisk, working across the data science and the digital transformation organization, where I'm responsible for most of our clinical systems and then heading up a couple of major digital transformation programs.
Perfect. In terms of your role within Novo Nordisk, as you go into these programs, is there anything in particular that's commanding your time? Are there any big projects you're starting to work on that you can share a little bit of insight into?
Well, I think big in the aspect of just changing our entire IT infrastructure, pretty much.
That seems a fairly significant project.
I think so. And I also think it's needed. I mean, we haven't been able to evolve much in the pharma industry in the last many years, until the last few years, actually. And it seems we have a lot to catch up. And maybe I can start going back to when I first joined as a clinical data manager to Novo Nordisk in 2007. So my background is in IT engineering. I started my career as a system developer. So I think I have a good foundation to understand IT and infrastructure, systems and applications. I came from a blooming fintech industry in the early zeros, and then I joined the pharma industry. And it was like doing a time travel back in time.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I came in, I think the scientific content of the job was so exciting. There was a little bit of technology to it, but then often I also found myself standing by the fax machine to handle queries, sending them back and forth to the CRAs and sites, and then also scanning paper so that I could send data to people doing data entry. And I thought, could this really be true? Yeah. So luckily, I got introduced to something called EDC back then, which I think in the beginning had a slow uptake in the industry, and we had often a lot of pushback from the sites we worked with because it was also very new to them. But luckily, we managed to improve over time, listen to users, take their feedback and improve what we did, both from a process perspective, but also from a technology and application user-friendliness perspective, and managed to give them a lot of extra features that help them in their daily work. And if you ask any site today, would they go back to the good old paper process? I think they would say no, luckily.
Interesting there, so I started a little bit before you. I won't age myself too much, but I think a couple of things you say there resonate well. The pharma industry, for good reason, is very conservative, but are we too conservative is one question I'd like to ask you. But also, I think going back in time to when those first technologies came out, it was very slow to adopt. Do you think we're too, along with conservatism, are we too determined to have absolute proof before we jump into something new?
I think it was like that in the beginning, but it was also because we didn't have really the knowledge about technology versus pharma and clinical development. We had to be conservative back in the days because we hold the life of our patients in our hands pretty much, and we have to be careful. And I still think we need to be careful these days.
Yep.
But nevertheless, I think gaining insights to our processes, the clinical development process in general, and how technology can be applied on top of that and facilitate a lot of what we do has been a game changer.
And do you think that technology need, as well as that openness to technology, comes from the fact, when I started, I described research as two-dimensional. You knew what a patient was going to do once they joined the study. If they went the whole way through the study, you knew exactly where they would be. Today, I don't think research is one-dimensional. It's two-dimensional, maybe three-dimensional, even four-dimensional. Patients are doing weird and wonderful things for all the right reasons as personalized medicine comes in. And I think part of my challenge early on was always, you can design the optimum study, but we had no way to execute it.
Yeah.
Now I think we can execute more and more and more. And maybe there's an opportunity for technology to be ahead of the science in these ideas. We can make trials better. We can optimize them even further using the sensible technologies available. Do you think that's true?
I think that's very true. I like to think that by adopting the right technologies, we can, as we say, run the right trials the right way.
Yep.
And I also think it's key for us getting the best data possible and facilitating the process of a clinical trial, both for sites and patients, and ourselves, of course. I think enabling clinical trials with technology to patients have really changed the way we get data. We get it faster now. We can do more proper monitoring of what's going on during the trial, correct any issues while we go along the way, and then we just see the quality of the data goes up when technology is being used.
Cool. Now, I want to go on and talk about some of the initiatives, but you've said a couple of things there I want to just double click on first. You've mentioned sites multiple times, and you've mentioned patients multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
As an industry, I think I'm going to say this, I think we've paid lip service to sites in the past. We've talked about being site-centric, we've talked about being patient-centric. My sense is you're not paying lip service anymore. My sense is you're actually putting your money where your mouth is and genuinely investing in those ideas. Am I picking that up correctly?
I think so, and I think we need to, for us to be successful. To get back to one of your first questions, what major initiatives do we have going on? So this is about changing our infrastructure. I'm not just talking about what we're changing at Novo for Novo. I'm also thinking about the patients and sites in this aspect. Right. So, thinking user-centric is gonna be key to our success, and adopting to, the best practice and processes that goes on at the sites, or putting yourself into the place of a patient when going through assessments and a daily life when included in a clinical trial can really help us. One of the things we are looking at when thinking infrastructure is how can we provide a platform approach to our users. And you can say today when we conduct a clinical trial, we give the sites and patients around 20 systems to deal with.
Yep.
And some of these professional sites, they deal with these 20 systems we give them from Novo, and then they also work with other sponsor companies, so they give them a few other new systems and applications to work with. And maybe they're working with 3-4 different sponsors at any time. And that means dealing with 30 to 40 different systems that we give them, and end of the day we have the nerve to complain about that data is not of the right quality.
Yep.
I think we need to look a little bit inwards and say, how can we change this to make life a bit easier for the users so that we get the right data at the right time in the right quality.
And interesting, you talked earlier about 2007, 2008. Isn't that kind of the same approach we took with EDC? We threw it at sites and said, this will make your life better. Off we go.
Exactly.
We're not going to pay you anymore. You have to be faster, better. And that transfer of burden had almost a negative effect. Where do you see patients coming in terms of technology?
Well, I actually think the patients, from what I've been experiencing lately, is they're more willing and ready to take on technology than we tend to think. So I think it's about start rolling it out a bit more. But before doing that, we need to take in the patient's perspective to it, right? It's not just a bunch of old IT developers, software engineers who think they come up with the best solution ever. No, it has to be the voice of the patient that speaks first, and then we build something that really supports that process.
Perfect. So we've started to touch on it, but maybe we can jump into a little bit more. But before we jump into some of the examples, what transformation feels and looks like, what about the drivers then? So Novo Nordisk is one of the fastest growing pharma companies in the world. Why do you need to change?
Yeah, well, I mean, being in this great situation of driving growth, we also need to grow in a sustainable way and think about how can we scale in a sustainable way. And I think, again, coming back to having the right infrastructure, the right technology is really going to be key to our continuous success. I mean, thinking about, again, back to when I started in clinical data management, we used to collect maybe 5 to 7 million data points a year, and now these days we're collecting approximately 2 billion data points a year. It's a totally different game we're playing right now, and it's only going one way, and that's exponential growth in the pool of data that we're dealing with. So thinking technology is different than it was 20 years ago when we started here. And I think also appreciating an asset in a way it wasn't looked at 20 years ago, because it was a lot about the molecules and the protocols and what have you back then. And now suddenly data is becoming a key asset to the business. So being able to read this data with advanced analytics and having the platform to cope with it is going to change the game, I think. So our historical data, the data we can get by collaborating across the industry, I think is going to tell us again which trials to run and how to run them, so that we are able to develop the best treatments for our patients the fastest way possible. Definitely. We know there's a lot depending on us out there, and we should take that responsibility quite serious.
Now, you said one word there that I don't hear very often, and I would like to come back to that: sustainability, a sustainable approach. Can you just dig into that for me? What does that mean for you and for Novo?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if we manage to scale properly in our company, meaning that we run the right trials the right way, and also thinking about scalability. I mean, today there is a strong proportionality between number of data points versus number of people we need to deal with it. We need to break that proportionality. And again, now I'm going to say a key word here. I think AI is going to help us. Automation is already winning in to our industry and being used more and more. But considering the amounts of data we're getting in, automation is not gonna help us much more in the next few years. We will be dependent on AI.
Where do you see the move? And perhaps we can start with, how would you distinguish automation from AI?
Yeah. Well, I think, take it for what it is. I think you need to start with small experiments and see where it gets you. And once you understand the technology, you also learn about the potential of it. And even though we start small, I still think we need to think big.
Yep.
But in order to also be realistic, we need to start small. I think, use our creative sense and experiment, test out your small ideas and see how you can scale them and use them on some of the bigger challenges that we have out there. I think that combined with understanding the clear vision and aspiration for your company, or within your own small organization even, is going to help you apply this technology to solving bigger challenges. But again, think big, but start small. One of the most important steps is to learn from your past. But I think just learning from the past isn't necessarily enough. We do have a significant amount of data, but there is much more data to get out there across the industry. So hoping that we as sponsors, different organizations and authorities, if we can work a bit more seamless across together, I think this is gonna give us tremendous opportunities for what we can develop and discover for the future. I think, using automation wherever you can to avoid any manual tasks, I think will be a really good start. So things like, our setup processes for systems and documentation, I think automation can get us far. The same thing goes for, handling processes during conduct phase, during closure phase. So we get prepared for database lock and can conduct database lock as fast as possible. And then what I'm seeing more and more of is we're spicing up things with putting AI on top for how to deal with our data during conduct of our studies. So this about doing data cleaning as a very concrete CDM example. I think that's one of the things that's going to change significantly. And some people, they still ask the question, is AI a hype or not? I don't think it is anymore. I think we're starting to see concrete examples of where it's used. If I have to speak for myself, I actually worked with a small team of very smart people. And that's, again, starting small but thinking big. And you don't always need, big teams of smart people to do great things. Just having a small team of all the right smart colleagues can get you far. So we actually did a small initiative to test out, can we generate meaningful test data to be used for setting up and testing and validating our systems. That will save us a lot of time and raise our quality in the system setup significantly. And guess what? It proves to work, right? Now with a click of a button, we can actually generate meaningful test data when setting up our systems and testing them out. And I think it's been a great joy seeing it work as one of the first true AI initiatives. Yep. So it's an algorithm we developed that learns from past studies we set up by looking at the actual data that was collected and then using it to generate something that can be used for new studies.
Novo Nordisk took a very interesting approach to study build with the study builder application. For anyone who may not have heard about it, I know it's been very publicly discussed, but would you mind just giving a little insight into that and perhaps your approach in terms of open source?
Sure. So what we did start up a couple of years back is the Study Builder application, where the first focus is being able to digitally generate protocols by facilitating through this application that all different stakeholders involved in the protocol development process can work together in one environment, speaking the same language, looking at the same standards, and having the same catalogs to pick from. That's the first start. But thinking about that, when you standardize and digitize the protocol development process, what then becomes available is the metadata for setting up your systems. And this is where automation, at least at first hand, comes into play. So if you can pull out a digital specification for the systems you're about to set up, you can actually also automate the system setup. And this is what we're getting closer and closer to being able to do right now. And I expect the first results being able to be shown during this year. All the clinical systems that's going to be used to conduct our studies, and further downstream to generate the submission data sets. Because the metadata that's going to be available out of the Study Builder, which also contains a MDR, a metadata repository, is going to have also the STM annotation included. Right? So having that combined with the test data I just talked about, having the annotations available, automating that, I mean, basically you could have your submission ready before you conduct a study. So that's going to be quite interesting to see how things look like in 1 to 2 years from now, and it's not much further out in the future.
No, good. And I suppose the other thing that just struck me as you said that, I think as a data manager, the tasks that irritate me most, UAT is one of them. And you're now truly tackling that at source, which is huge. If you think about the cycles, the redundancies, that's going to be a huge game changer.
And I think, I mean, you don't necessarily want to remove all eyes out of the UAT process, but what you are facilitating is that you get rid of all the small annoying testing bits and pieces, and then enabling yourself and your key stakeholders to focus on the complex setup of the study. And if you can do that, this is where I think quality really goes up. I want to really be able to think that I ensured that treatments could come out faster to patients in a really good quality, because using my technical understanding and mindset for utilizing technologies in a pharma world.
So as you're going through the transformations, we've talked about UAT, we've talked about Study Build, we've talked around kind of getting to results faster and submissions faster. But what are the other big goals you think that we need to strive to do? We often talk about EHR integrations. We're talking about automation of other steps, safety reporting. But what are the next big things on your mind, or is it all of the above?
Well, obviously it is all of the above, and maybe even more when more smart people joins us and maybe retire, you and me, and then they build on what we started. I promised my colleagues that before I retire, I was going to be the inventor of that button that just sets up everything you need for conducting your trials, and the only thing you need to be concerned about is operating inside the machine room of making that functionality of the button keep improving.
Does that lead you then to think, wow, data management's a lot more important than it was in 2007?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I walk around these days with my head much higher than 20 years ago,
Yep.
where data management was a discipline that was just there, and making sure that whatever we did just had to work.
Yep.
And now we're becoming a key player and really recognized for doing so.
Yep.
So I think the evolution of the industry have been working for us, but also we did a lot of proactive things ourselves.
Yep.
Right, the need for digitizing everything we do, and then now digitalization being key. Everyone understands that, and who have the technical understanding? Well, that's your dear data managers. So finally, we get the recognition we've always deserved.
Absolutely. Cool. So look, I always save my last question for everyone. You've had a little bit of time to think about it, but if you had a magic wand, if I could give you a magic wand, and you could make one or two things just disappear, assign them to room 101 so they never have to be thought of or considered ever again, and if you could wave the same magic wand and create something, make something happen, maybe that's the magic button, but if you could make something appear that you can't currently do today, what would that be? And I'll let you start in either order, disappear or appear.
I think if I start with disappear, anything that's manual has to go away.
Yep.
And what I would like to fast forward to is the button I just told you about. So that would be great. And is it being too ambitious or futuristic? I really don't think so. If there's one thing I never listen to is when someone tells me, it can be done.
Yep.
It actually motivates me. It makes me motivated for proving to these people that it actually can be done. Not just because of that, but actually, when you're driven by the vision of our company, and it's very clear what we need to do, end of the day, I will do everything that I can to use the skill sets that I have, at least, and maybe I'm not obligated more than that, but at least I will try my best to get us where we want to be as fast as possible. And if that is about being creative, so be it. And I think technology and creativity is a fantastic cocktail.
We could spend a lot more time talking, but I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything else, any final thoughts you would like to share with our audience in terms of the transformation at Novo, your own personal journey, or anything else?
I think my best advice is don't let anyone stop you. Think big, start small. Don't believe that it can't be done, because it can. We're doing it one step at a time, and I think over time we'll be able to do things faster and faster. So just keep grinding and stay creative.
Perfect. Thank you very much, sir. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast. If you've enjoyed this, I hope you'll join us for further ones.